Good morning, everyone. I am Mohammad Mazri Khan, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Maharaja Institute of Technology, Mysore. So today, I am going to explain one of the important concepts of operations management, that is productivity. So we have the different concepts in operations management. So the first concept is production system, types of production systems, productivity, factors affecting productivity. In this session, we shall discuss each one of these topics. Okay. So before moving on to the types of the production system, we shall understand the meaning of manufacturing system as well as the production system. So a manufacturing system is all about. So the main difference between manufacturing system and production system is that, so in a manufacturing system, so basically manufacturing system is conversion of raw material to a finished product. Okay, so here in a manufacturing you will have the end product as a product, whereas in of production system you have finished goods as well as you have the services. So basically in a production system, so it is a conversion of raw material to the finished products as well as the services. So in a production system we are going to, we have the output of a production system will be a finished goods and services, whereas the output of a manufacturing system is only the product, So the key difference between production system and manufacturing system. In a production system, I have used the tangible as well as the intangible factors. In case of manufacturing system, we have only the tangible factor, whereas in case of production system, we have both tangible as well as intangible factors. I just took an example for a tangible goods. I took an example of a sugar cane. So sugar cane is the input. So this sugar cane, it will be converted to a refined sugar, that is the output. So basically tangible is nothing but you can touch it and you can feel it. That is what a tangible is all about, correct? So and one more is intangible goods. So basically intangible is not, you can't touch it or you can't feel it. That is what intangible is. So in an intangible, I just took an example of a software development company. So there the inputs will be the program of codes or a program of instructions. So it gets processed and the output will be the application. That is intangible in this case. Okay. So the output of a production system will be the finished goods as well as the services. So basically the difference between tangible and intangible is nothing but in a tangible you can touch it and you can feel it. Say one more example, if I want to take it, say if I take this mobile phone, so I can touch it and I can feel it. This is what a tangible. If the same mobile phone, if I use a software called CAD. So in CAD, if I have the same mobile phone in a computer, that is intangible. We can't feel it, right? So that is what the main difference. So I repeat once again. So the production system, the output of a production system is the finished goods and services, whereas the output of a manufacturing system is only the product, not the services. So here, strictly speaking, the production system is a broader sense compared to your manufacturing system. Next, we shall move on to the different types of production system. So under types of production system, we have major two types of production system. One is we have continuous production system and one more is intermittent production system. So what exactly a continuous production system? So in continuous production system, we have a sequence of operations and that are interrelated in order to get the end product. So that is what the process is continuous. The word itself will tell in a continuous production system, the process is continuous. Okay. So under this continuous production system, we have two different types. One is mass production system, or it is also called as flow production system. The second type is process production system. So what is the difference between mass production system and process production system? So in a mass production system, so in this mass production system, a standardization is a key word. Means to say that a standardized raw material is used to process through a standardized machines in order to get a standardized end product. That is, the standardization key is the key in case of mass production system. So the process
it is interrelated, it is interconnected, and it flows in a sequence of operations. So it is also called as flow production system. Say, for an example, I took up an example in a steel manufacturing industry or a soft drink, or in a soft drink. So we have a difference, the operations, the sequence of operations that are interrelated, that are interlinked in case of mass production, or we call it as a flow production system. Okay, moving on to the next type of production system, we have a process production system. So in this process production system, so if we just quote an example of a crude oil, so this crude oil, we have many byproducts for this crude oil. Like we have a kerosene, we have a petrol, we have diesel, and many byproducts we will get from this crude oil. So means to say that, so in a process production system, so the output of one process is the input for the other in case of process production system. So here we get a byproduct. Say I took one more example in a milk manufacturing industry. We have many byproducts in a milk, right? So that is what a process production system. So here in mass production system, the standardization is the key thing. In a process production system, the output of one process is the input to the other process in case of process production system. So next. So if we want to speak about the product variety in case of continuous production system, so the product variety in case of continuous production system is very low. Say here in this graph, we have plotted in x-axis we have plotted the product variety, and in y-axis we have plotted the volume. So in case of mass production, we have a volume, high volume. So in case of mass production, we have high volume and the product variety is low, and the product variety is very less in case of mass production. Say in case of a soft drink, right? If you just take one example, in a Coca-Cola industry, the output is only the Coca-Cola part, right? So we are not going to manufacture the other products in case of mass production. The product variety means to say that the product variety is very low in case of mass production, and the volume is high in case of mass production. Okay, moving on to the next type, that is intermittent production system. So under intermittent, we have two different types. One is batch production system, one more is job production system. So basically the word itself will tell, right? In a batch production system, it is going to happen in batches. The production is going to happen in batches in case of batch production system. So say for example, in an intermittent production system, if I just want to take up an example, in case of watch industry, under this watch industry, we have different straps, we have different dials, right? So in this, we have different straps, different dials. So we will get the output as different range of products. So like in case of, we have men watches, we have women watches in case of this watch industry, right? So basically here in batch production system, so the production is going to happen in batches. Say if I just want to take up an example in a pharmaceutical industry, in pharmaceutical industry, say one medicine is going to manufacture, that is going to manufacture in batches. Okay, say if I just want to take one more example in a textile industry. In textile industry, we have different patterns. So after one particular pattern is over, so the next production system, the input for the next thing is the different patterns. Basically in batch production, the word itself will tell it, the production system is going to happen in batches, or in case of lot sizes, in case of batch production system. Okay, so this batch production system, it lies somewhere between job shop and mass production. Mass production, the volume is high and the product variety is low, whereas in case of batch production, in batch production, it lies somewhere between mass as well as the job shop. So the product variety will be mid-variant in case of batch production. Okay, moving on to the next type of production system, that is job production system. So basically here in job production system, it happens based on the customer orders. The production is going to happen based on the customer orders. Say for example, we have in job shop, we have product variety, we have very high product variety, and the volume is very less. Volume is very less. Say I took up an example here. In this case, we have aeroplane, we have shipbuilding industry. So here the number is very less in case of job production system. So basically this batch production system is nothing but it is an extension of job shop production. Batch is nothing but it is an extension of job shop production. And one more thing we need to understand by seeing this figure, right? By seeing this graph, we need to understand in case of mass production, the product variety is very less and the volume is high. So basically here the processing machines that are interrelated and interconnected, if we want to change a product, the entire layout we need to change. That is one of the biggest disadvantages in case of mass production system. Okay, that is one of the biggest disadvantages in case of mass production system. So if we want to change a product, the entire layout we need to change it in case of mass production system. Okay, so basically here we need to understand by seeing this. I repeat once again, we need to understand here is in mass production the product variety is less and the volume is high, whereas in batch production the product variety is mid variant and the volume is also mid variant. So this batch production, it lies in between job shop and mass production. In job shop the product variety is more and the volume is very less in case of job shop production. So I hope the different types of production system is very clear to you. The difference is nothing but, so if they ask types of production system, we have only two types. One is continuous production system, intermediate production system. So under continuous we have mass production, or we call it as flow production. So under this continuous production system, process production system. And here in process production system, we need to understand the output of one process is the input to the other. Say one more example in case of garment factory. So we have different departments, we have different sections. So we have stitching section, we have cutting section. So the output of the cutting section will be the input for the stitching section. Again, the output of the stitching section will be the input for the packing section. We have different sections. So in this case of process production, again intermediate, it is not the standardized product, we will get it in intermediate. So only the standardized thing is in continuous production system, whereas in case of intermediate system, we need to understand here we are not going to manufacture a standardized products. In case of intermediate production system, we have range of products in case of intermediate production system. Under this we have batch production system and job production system. Okay, so batch production, the production system is going to happen in batches or in lot size in case of batch production system. In case of job shop production system, the volume is very less. So this job shop production system is based on the customer orders. That is the different types of production system. I hope the concept is very clear to you. Next we shall discuss about productivity. So what is productivity? Productivity is nothing but it is the ratio of output to input. So in other words, we can define productivity as it is a measure of how much input is required in order for a given output. That is what productivity is all about. So we need to understand the difference between productivity and efficiency. So what is productivity and efficiency? Are productivity and efficiency are one and the same, or they are different? So if I take one example in terms of productivity and efficiency, I say I need to manufacture 100 number of products. 100 number of products I need to manufacture. Okay, so that is productivity. So in those 100 products, if I am going to reject 30 and if I just want 70 of them, that is efficiency. Efficiency is in terms of quality terms, whereas productivity is in terms of quantity terms. Okay, say for
for an efficiency calculation, the output by input should be lesser than 1. For a productivity calculation, the output to input should be greater than 1. So, in other words, how can we define productivity? So, the productivity is nothing but the value of goods and services produced for the cost that has, for the cost of input, that is nothing but productivity. Next, we shall move on to the different factors that affects productivity. Under this, we have controllable or internal factors. Next is uncontrollable or external factors. So, what exactly controllable or internal factors? Controllable factors are those factors which can be controlled within the organization and that exist within the organization, that is controllable or internal factors. So, which are all those controllable or internal factors? First one is product, plant and equipment, technology, materials, energy resources and power supply, human factors, management style. We shall discuss one by one. First one is product. So, this is the end product of any of the organization. So, basically here we need to concentrate on the product because that is the end product. So, every organization will work on one principle to maximize the profit and to minimize the losses. So, obviously the product, it should be, it is nothing but it is a measure of usefulness. If it is, if it is useful and if the cost is very less, then obviously that increases productivity. Next, we shall move on to the plant and equipment. So, if the machineries are well maintained in order to avoid breakdowns, in order to avoid idle times, that increases productivity. Next, we shall move on to the third factor, that is technology. So, advancement of the technology that increases productivity. I will take one example. I have a lathe machine, I have a CNC machine. CNC machine is of advanced technology. So, obviously in CNC machines, the productivity will be increased compared to lathe. Next, we shall move on to the material. Material that plays a major role. So, we need to avoid the wastage of material in order to increase productivity because the end product is the material. Okay. Next is energy resources and power supply. If there is a shortage of power supply, so that affects productivity. So, the machineries, it has to be stopped, so that in turn affects productivity, and the resources that has to be utilized effectively and efficiently. Next is human factors. Under human factors, if we give training for the employees, that affects productivity based on the attitudes of the employees, that also affects productivity. Next is management style. So, management style, from if the management is a very dynamic and flexible, so for with the working class, that in turn affects productivity. Okay, these are all the controllable or internal factors. I repeat once again. So, here we have product, plant and equipment, technology, material, energy resources and power supply, human factors and management style. Product, it is measure of usefulness. If it is useful, then that increases productivity with reducing cost. One more is plant and equipment. If plant and equipment are well maintained and serviced time to time, in order to avoid breakdown, in order to avoid idle times, that increases productivity. Next is technology. With the advancement of technologies, that affects productivity. Next is material. This is the end product. We have to reduce the material wastage in order to increase productivity. Next is energy resources and power supply. If we avoid if there is a shortage of power supply, that in turn affects productivity. We have to effectively utilize the resources effectively and efficiently in order to increase productivity. Next is human factors. human behavioral that plays a major role in terms of productivity. If we give proper training to the employees, that in turn affects productivity. Next is management style. So if the management is very dynamic and flexible, then obviously that increases productivity. These are all the factors that affects productivity. These are all controllable or internal factors, these factors that exist within the organization. Moving on to the next, uncontrollable or external factors. These factors that exist outside the organization, means to say it is not controlled by the organization. Which are all those factors? Say, first factor is changes in economic situation, second natural resources, third government policies, fourth one is infrastructure. So changes in economic situation, if there is a new technology, if we import new technology, so obviously that affects the productivity. And one more thing, if the value of currency, if the value of Indian rupees, it changes with respect to foreign currencies, that in turn affects the productivity. Next, natural resources. In natural resources, if a country which has rich in natural resources, might be land, water facility, so that increases productivity. Okay. Next is government policies. We have different policies, we have different tax slabs, so obviously that affects productivity. So based on the tax, based on the government policies and different standards, that in turn affects productivity. Next is infrastructure. If we have a very good infrastructure, that increases productivity. So if we have a very good transportation facility, and if the infrastructure is, if we concentrate on the infrastructure part, that in turn increases productivity. So I hope these are all the uncontrollable or external factors. I repeat, uncontrollable or external factors are nothing but they are not controlled within the organization. These factors that exist outside the organization, economic changes, so changes in economic situation. So as I said, import of new technology or the value of the currencies that changes with respect to foreign currency. So obviously that affects productivity. One more is natural resources. If a country if it is rich in natural resources, land facility, water facility, power supply facility, that increases productivity. And one more is government policies. So interest rates and tax. So that also plays a major role in terms of productivity. So next is infrastructure. If we have a very good infrastructure, that increases productivity. I hope the factors that affects productivity is clear enough. So I repeat once again. So productivity, in this session we discussed about productivity, the difference between productivity and efficiency, the factors affecting productivity, controllable and internal factors, and one more is uncontrollable and external factors. So in this session we discussed the production system, the various types of production system, productivity, factors affecting productivity. I hope the concept is clear enough.